Mr. Biondo, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Brennan, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service. And I have a number of questions I know in an open setting you won't be able to answer, so I'm looking forward to the closed setting. But Ms. Sewell asked, to the extent you can answer in this setting, what the elements of Russian active measures in the campaign of the election were. So are these, can you be any more specific than your answer with her about what they were doing, what you saw?
I think they're all chronicled in the Unclassified Intelligence Community Assessment in terms of it's very clear that the GRU was responsible for hacking into the networks of the DNC, DCCC, and were responsible through a cutout, releasing it through places like Lucifer 2.0, WikiLeaks, and others. And so they were taking advantage of information that they had collected that they determined, if it was publicly released, was going to advance their objectives that I had enumerated before. In addition, they amplified a lot of fake news stories that tried to denigrate Secretary Clinton. So it was a mixture of propaganda, it was cyber collection, and it was the release of information that was again seen as damaging to one of the candidates that they were trying to harm.
So you said a moment ago that you don't believe they'll be deterred from engaging in activity like this in the future. Do you think they would attempt to influence the 2018 midterm elections?
I had resources and authorities that allowed us to do things, but I think this is something that maybe in a classified setting
It's called the Patriot Act, and they shoved that fucker through even before Trump hit office. That went through all committee, all of Congress in December. So they got, I think it was like 10 years before we could start pulling funding from these fuckers for being what they are. They spy on Americans. Everything you write, everything you type, everything you talk to on a phone, all of that goes into data banks. They're shoving them out here in Wyoming and down in Colorado and Utah, these huge databases that control all of this fucking information.
I can talk more about.
And do you think there are ways that we can assist our allies in thwarting what the Russians are doing? Is it simply sharing information, or are there additional measures that can be taken? Because I think if...
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, I want to say that I have been up to the agency to review those documents that you had referred to before, and I look forward to talking about the information therein in our closed session. I also want to mention something that we had talked with Admiral Rogers and Mr. Comey for in our last or two open sessions ago from the House Intelligence Committee. It's one that sort of got a lot of hoopla on TV with regard to our side of the aisle here trying to make a diversionary tactic when we talk about the importance of what leaks do with our intelligence community. And I just want to ask you if you agree with Admiral Rogers that when high-level intelligence community officials, I think some news reports had almost 20 people leaking classified information to the press, if you agree with Admiral Rogers that that kind of leaking with our ability to have to reauthorize things like 702 so we can gather intelligence on bad guys for political purposes, if you agree that that kind of activity actually hurts our national security.
I think the unauthorized disclosure of classified information at all times hurts our national security, compromises our intelligence capabilities, and needs to be investigated, needs to stop. Absolutely.
Thank you. With regard to some more specific questions, with regard to hacking, when did you learn of the Russian hacking in the last election cycle?
In the summer.
And did you at that time notify both campaigns
Bonk, he knew back in December.
that you, or did somebody at the agency, or are you aware that both campaigns were notified at that time that there was an effort by the Russians to hack and try to influence the political campaign of last year?
I was aware that both campaigns were being contacted and notified about it, yes.
You said, I believe, to Mr. Gowdy that you believe that there was information of contact between people in the Trump universe and Moscow. Whether or not that was collusion or not remains to be seen. You said you didn't know if it was actual collusion. I think that your words were, "I don't know." Can you tell us whether or not, from the information that you've looked at, it looks like the intelligence shows that Moscow was actually rooting for Donald Trump, or were they rooting against Hillary Clinton? And why?
I think my assessment is it was both. I think that they, at different times in the campaign, they felt that the fortunes of one candidate or the other was going up or down. And I think that they, most of the time, believed that Secretary Clinton was going to win the election. And so their efforts to denigrate her were not just to try to diminish her chances of winning, but also to hurt her and for her eventual presidency. But also, it's my assessment that they clearly had a more favorable view toward Mr. Trump, and actions they were taking were trying to increase his prospects, even though I think that they probably felt as though they were not all that great.
Why? Why did they want her, or why did they want him and not her?
I think that's a variety of reasons. One is that there was had been a traditional, I think, animus, certainly between Mr. Putin and Secretary Clinton, as well as there has not been a good relationship between between Putin and the Clintons over the years. I felt that Secretary Clinton, with some of her actions while she was Secretary of State, led to some of the domestic disturbances inside of Russia. And I think he was more concerned that she was going to be more rigid on certain issues, particularly on human rights and other issues.
So what was Donald Trump going to do for them then? Or was it just that they didn't like Hillary?
No, I think they felt that Mr. Trump, being a bit of an outsider, and that they have in the past had some good relations with businessmen who happened to elevate into positions of government authority, and so felt as though, from a negotiating standpoint, that he might be more amenable to
good relations. If that's true, one of the questions that I have, and this might be more appropriate for closed session, but if that's true, was there in your review of the evidence, was there more damaging evidence of Secretary Clinton that was not revealed? And if it wasn't revealed, what does that say about the Russian ability to be actually rooting for her to win?
Well, yeah, we can't talk about it in close, but as I said, I think that they anticipated that Secretary Clinton was going to win the election. And so I believe that they tried to damage and bloody her before the election. But also, I would have anticipated that, had she been elected, that their efforts to denigrate her and hurt her would have continued during her presidency. So if they did collect more information about her that they did not release, I think they were probably husbanding it for another day.